Welcome back to the In Spirit Flow podcast, the spot for business owners to tune into growth topics for success. I'm your host, Bree, small business consultant and local business owner, here to help you shape your small business and life into the big dreams you desire. And today I am excited to announce the first guest on our podcast, and that's something we'll be featuring monthly going forward in season 2. So our guest today is Miss Kerry Thomas, and we connected in a networking group online during my time in Florida, and I was highly impressed with her coaching expertise in helping business owners get organized, but it really wasn't until I saw her TEDx talk that I realized it goes so much deeper than that. And I always thought organization was just kind of how you keep your desk, but I realized from her TEDx talk, there's so much more to it, and we could all learn a few things from Kerry. So especially now with the timing as we're moving into the new year, we're starting 2024, we want to make sure that we're starting off on a new foot rather than repeating our same old patterns of the past and what hasn't really worked for us. Am I right? And so today we have Kerry Thomas, and she is the owner of Conquer the Chaos. She's an organizing expert who is passionate about helping clients eliminate all types of clutter. So physical, digital, mental, emotional, and more, so they can navigate their lives with ease. Kerry has a master's in special education, ADD endorsement, and she has a certification in productive environment specialist, which has shaped her perspective on how learning styles impact organization, time management, and productivity. So I highly recommend that you go over on YouTube and check out her TEDx talk, which takes a deep dive into the meaning and different types of clutter, which you can find over on YouTube called From Clutter to Clarity, Kerry Thomas, and it has over 1 million views, so it's pretty legit. She uses these same systems for her clients and in her own life to give her business more time and freedom so she can enjoy her family, friends, walks on the beach, reading, and of course, her Florida Gators. So please welcome Miss Kerry Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much, Bree. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so first off, I would love if you could just kind of give us an overview on how clutter affects our lives. What are some of the common struggles that you see from business owners in particular and the effects of clutter?
Okay, sure. So first of all, you hit on it in that intro, and that clutter is not just the stuff. It's not just the piles of paper or the, 100,000 emails, that type of thing. So it's anything that's keeping us from, as you said, navigating our life with ease. And many times the clutter piles on and grows because we're not making a decision about what to do with it. One of my mentors, Barbara Hemphill, coined that phrase that clutter is postponed decisions. And I completely agree. So what happens is things get harder, the more clutter we have, and the harder things get, the harder it is to clear the clutter. And so it becomes this big downward spiral. And I hear a lot of things like, can't, never, hopeless. I start to hear all those words, especially from the business owners. They have such a desire to do more, serve more people, have more clients, and they're buried physically and mentally under the clutter. So the good news is, just as that downward spiral happens, you can effectively change your life and your business no matter where you start. So people always say, like, well, where should I start? What should I do first? That kind of thing. And truly, it doesn't matter, because if you start with the physical stuff, your environmental clutter, you're going to shift the energy. You're going to bring in that freshness and that positivity. And then that's going to start to change what I call the internal clutter, the mental, emotional, spiritual. And then you start to have more energy and you start to clear more things. And we've all experienced it, even on a small scale, like you clean out one closet or a drawer, and it's just, you take that deep breath and it feels good. So it doesn't matter where you start. They can, if you think of it on a wheel, they can positively impact each other, and you can start to do more of what you want to do, what your purpose is, that
Mhm.
type of thing. So
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of came up an idea for me was a lot of people get kind of stuck in their identity of I'm not an organized person, or like just the overwhelm, I can't possibly take on one more thing. And so they kind of have to flip that mindset and just start somewhere and stop comparing to, the vision that they want to be in 5 years, and just start somewhere. Just
Right.
start.
Yeah. And you know what, that vision is very important, because in my process that I take my clients through, the very first thing, I have 4 F's, and the very first one is feel. That's the first F. And the reason I call it feel is because it's important to know that vision. How do you want to feel in your space? So when you walk into your office or your workspace, I'm at the beach, so like this table is my kitchen and my workspace right now. But how do you want to feel? Do you want to feel calm? Do you want to feel motivated? Do you want to feel organized? Do you want to feel empowered, or that you have momentum? So knowing how you want to feel immediately and down the road, big picture, it gives you that fuel for making the changes that you need to make. Like if you have the vision of calm office space, able to talk to my clients, and I feel comfortable and I feel passionate, and whatever it is, that vision and that feeling are going to drive you to make the changes that you want to make.
Yeah, that's so good and so important to spend a lot of time getting clear on that for sure.
Mhm.
So, talk about what getting organized can really do for a business owner. And something that you mentioned in your video was like the concept of giving God something to bless. So, over in my podcast and in my Facebook group, we talk about God, we're fueled by faith. And so I love that way that you worded that, was giving God something to bless. You have to move forward to start that momentum, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's what it's about. It's about the momentum. You have to do something to start. But getting organized, whatever that means to you. So I'll say that right off the bat. There's not one size fits all. There's no right or wrong. It's whatever works for you, literally, to get your work done, accomplish your work, and also have fun and enjoy your life. So the definition of organized and productive is not one size fits all. So I'll just say that right off the bat. But what happens is the information flow. So email, documents, paper mail, phone calls, the information that we're bombarded with, it's never going to stop. We don't want it to stop, right? Because that means our business has come to a standstill. So we can't truly manage it or get it done. So we have to learn how to handle the flow. And when we can get to where we feel like it is a flow and we have systems for everything that comes in, then you're not spinning your wheels, you're not wasting time. So we look at setting up systems for all the components, for your physical office, for your email, for your calendar, for your CRM or contact system, whatever you use, for your files, whether you have paper files or more and more people are going digital. Do you have, digital files on in the cloud or on your computer, whatever that is? So the first thing we do is we look at all of those areas and we do an assessment. Some people have big gaping holes where they're just piecing it together and there's nothing in place for a certain area. Other people have the opposite and they have duplicates. They have 3 different apps that they think are going to help them manage their tasks. And so they're not managing anything. And so you have to assess and look at where you are. But the main thing that it does, like if you imagine, we can all think of like an old-fashioned office or like a doctor's office. So if you imagine, papers come in and you have client files and the mail comes in and people are dropping stuff off all the time. So if there's not one place to put things that come in. Think of an old-fashioned inbox. We even need this in our house. The people who are organized in their house, they have systems for everything. They have one place to put their keys. They have the one place the mail goes that hasn't been processed yet. And then you also need places for things that are going out, things that are going somewhere else, somewhere to put your stuff to be filed that hasn't been filed yet. So there is, even in today's digital world, there are a lot of physical things that you can put in place to help you, but it's all about managing that flow, what comes in, what goes out, and how you're handling that.
Yeah, and I think the thing about that is it's actually not more work to put in those systems into place. It actually is the easier way to operate your life and takes so much of the stress off
Yeah.
your plate. Yeah,
Yes,
one of those
completely.
counterintuitive
Yeah.
things.
I've had that conversation a lot actually with people about like time management or calendars. And people will say, well, I'm very creative and I'm an artist and I like to have, open space, or, a lot of people call it white space or margins on your calendar. And I mean, my gosh, believe me, so do I. Nobody, well, very few people like that, like packed from morning to night feeling. But the funny thing is, if you put in some structure, so if like 2 mornings a week, I work on writing social media posts, or, every Saturday morning, I deal with my personal email and mail that's coming. If you put in some structure, whatever that looks like for you, time blocking, pattern planning, whatever that is, it actually helps you feel more free, because you're not carrying around like 1,000 things in your head of, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. When am I going to do this? When you're actually, like, okay, next Tuesday, I'm dealing with all that. So I don't have to worry about it until next Tuesday. So it
Yeah.
actually makes you feel more free. You're completely right.
Yeah, the weight of worry is just
Mhm.
insurmountable. You've got to
Yes.
get rid of the worry as much as possible.
Mhm.
So, what do you think the role of awareness plays in, controlling your clutter and the process of cleaning it up?
That's a good word, awareness. It's, I think, the cousin of one of my favorite words that I use, and that's intentional. You have to be intentional with what you're doing. Um, Awareness is key. That's why I talk about doing that assessment. You can think of it from a higher level of a business audit or a processes audit. Some of your listeners might be familiar with that. Some people, I'm working with one of my own personal coaches right now, and she's tasked us with doing an audit of 2023 for all areas: personal, relationship with ourselves and others, our money, our health, everything. Because if you're not aware, you don't know where the holes are, and you don't know where areas of improvement are. But you can't just look at the gaps. I think part of awareness is also looking at what you're doing well and celebrating that. I think business owners, especially like solo small business owners, we skip over that. We forget the gratitude and we forget the celebration. And it's so key. So awareness of where the gaps might be, but also what you're doing well. Like, where do you rock it? Seriously. Like, I think you
I'm
need to
so
look at
glad
both.
you said that because yeah, so often, especially small business owners are kind of a one-man show. And so they're just on to the next thing. They don't feel like there's probably time to stop and celebrate, but that's so much of a big part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, what are some simple takeaways that we could start to kind of have a fresh start for 2024? Just easy things we could do to implement to decrease a little bit of clutter in our lives.
Okay. So I'm going to say just like my top ones for home and office. These are in no particular order. This is just like when you ask me that, what comes out of my head. So first of all, if you want to make change, start with today. So let's say you want to get your email inbox down to 0. There's methods of going back and deleting, but start with today. Okay, I'm going to get rid of all the junk that comes in today. Same thing with, let's say you want to clean up your computer drives, but you have never used any sort of naming conventions. Your downloads are all over the place. You've got Dropbox and Google Drive, and you don't know what the heck is going on. Start with today. Anything you save from today, you decide what your structure is going to be. And you put things into that new structure. Then as you use old stuff, you can go back and move and do what you need to do. Or if you're watching a mindless, reality TV show one day or something, you can work on a few of that. But that's the first tip. Start from today. Whatever you decide it's going to be, start from today. So the second one that's true for home or office is, if you feel overwhelmed with actual clutter in your environment and you don't feel like you have it under control, pick one spot and declare it a clutter-free zone. Like take a stand. For some people, it's their kitchen table. For some people, it's their entryway, kitchen counters, their desk, whatever it is. You can ask yourself, what area, when it's neat and clean and organized, makes me feel really great, and start with that. And then that flexes that muscle. So let's say you pick your kitchen counters, then you sort of have to automatically find a home for all the stuff that's there. And it gets you in that habit of feeling what that space feels like and feeling how good it feels, and just putting things back where they go, and all that other kind of stuff. So declaring a no clutter zone is really good. If you want to make a dent in anything, so let's say you have clutter in your closets, or you have piles of books and papers in your office, anything you want to make a dent in, and it all feels too much, start small. You can make a goal of, I'm going to donate or throw away 5 things every week. I am currently, with my Facebook group, going through a challenge of throwing away 5 things or donating every week. And it's been really interesting. So you can start small. Some people also do like the garbage bag game, which is the night before trash comes, just go around your home or office and see what you can find. Like, put on a song, put on a dance song, or make it fun, or whatever it is, and just try to find like something from every room, or 2 things from each drawer, or whatever it is. But the more you can make it fun and start small, eventually it'll snowball and you'll see some real progress. The other thing I would say is, be careful of what comes in to your home or office. So freebies are not your friend. You don't have to pick up that mug at the bank just because they're giving it away, unless you really need mugs. You don't have to say yes to something that, your mother-in-law is giving away, or your neighbor. Freebies are not your friends. Be very careful of what comes in. If it's paper mail and you get a lot of mail, don't even go straight to your office or your kitchen. Like, take a detour and go by the trash can or the recycling bin, and only bring in what needs to truly be addressed. Like, be there's that word again, very intentional. Like, set that standard and that guideline that I am making a change in 2024. And yes, I've got to go through all of this old stuff, but it starts with nothing new coming in. So those would be my top tips. Yeah.
Those are amazing tips. I love all of that. Okay. So if making decisions is kind of because, or we put off making decisions, what do you think is the driving force behind that? People wanting to put off making the decision to move forward on something.
It's what we're telling ourselves. It's the thoughts in our head. And, so first of all, I'll say that the most successful people make the most decisions. They know that making a decision moves the needle. And then if they need to course correct and, oh, no, that was wrong, I'm going to go back this way. But they don't spin in indecision. There are no truly successful people out there that you will ever hear say, well, I don't know, for months and months on end. They make a decision, they commit to it, and then they live with it and they go from there. So that would be number one. I think what keeps us from making decisions is some of that internal clutter. It's those voices, maybe that lack of self-trust. I will say that our brains, without going into a whole lesson now, our brains are wired to keep us safe, and anything new feels unsafe to our brains just because it's unknown and it's new. But our brains are also really magnificent in that our brain wants to answer the questions that we give it. So if we walk around saying, why am I so unorganized? Why can't I do this? Why is this place a mess? Behind the scenes in our subconscious, which is really running the show, our brain's going to find you answers. It's going to start looking around for evidence and it's going to find answers. So making better decisions starts with asking better questions. And my clients, and I know you said you work with mindset, so I'm sure you've seen this. My clients sometimes feel like, oh, this is silly or whatever, because I encourage them to ask other questions like, how can I make this fun? What are my strengths around this? Or, just asking different questions that behind the scenes, again, gives your brain something to answer in a positive way. Suddenly the decisions will start coming.
Yeah, I love that. That's something Tony Robbins would always say, like the quality of your life is the quality of your questions. And it's like, man, you just got to
Yeah,
ask better questions in your head. It's all about how you talk to yourself.
exactly.
Okay, so in your TEDx talk, you talk a little bit about spiritual clutter. Tell us, what does that mean and what does that look like?
Sure. So spiritual clutter, again, is part of that internal. There's mental and emotional and spiritual. They're all very closely intertwined. Spiritual is more, so it's not like a religion thing necessarily. It can be questioning our purpose, questioning, is there a higher power? But it's mostly about our inner peace and our purpose, which may or may not tie in with specific religious beliefs. But if you are not, I strongly believe that we all have a purpose in this life. And clutter sometimes is defined as anything that keeps you from living out your purpose. I've seen that definition and I like that one as well. It's anything that's clogging you. So if you imagine that, like your brain and your inner self and your soul, so to speak, if it's like clogged with old junk, old voices, old thoughts, old patterns, you're not living your purpose and you're certainly not living your best life. And so peeling away those layers can get us back to that more clarity in those mental, emotional, and spiritual realms.
Yeah, and it really just ties in the concept, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So you can look at your physical, and likely it even reflects kind of the mental, emotional, internal state of how you handle things. And that's just for
It
awareness,
is.
just
And I
mind-boggling.
think I think it goes back to asking those questions. It ties in with that because mental clutter can be defined as like all the voices, like the news, the people, like bleh, like everything coming at us. And then that can turn into emotional clutter where like you start to become affected, like deeply affected, not just in your thoughts, but in your body and in your spirit. And then that can lead even deeper into spiritual clutter where you start to question, like, what am I doing here? Purpose of life type thing. But to roll it back and to start to eliminate it all goes back to knowing and owning that we are in control of our thoughts. And that's why I say in my TED Talk, like, you have the power. That's the phrase that I use. Like, you can make change in your life because only you are in charge of your thoughts. And when people's lives change, it's when they learn that all the stuff outside of you is not what's controlling you. It may feel like it, but it's your thought about all that stuff that's controlling you. And so that's why I said in my TED Talk, like, you have the power. And when people start to realize that and practice that, even in tiny ways, that's when the clutter just starts to fade away, the internal clutter. And then as soon as that internal clutter is gone, you start to see a change on the outside, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is so good. So, so good. All right. Well, why don't you tell us if you've got anything coming up or anything you want to share with the audience, and how can we follow you and stay in touch?
Sure. So one of my favorite ways to stay connected is my Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, I know not everybody is, but that is called Less Clutter, More Peace. And you can just, hit to apply to join that. That's a great way to stay connected. I also have my website, but in addition to my website, I have just a place where you can go, like, just quick if you want to get a download about getting unstuck. And you can also take a quiz to tell you how productive you are. So that's pretty fun and or not. And that is cluttertoclaritysteps.com. So that's the other way to get in touch. I would say those are the two best ways. And really, in addition, I'm always taking one-on-one clients, but in addition to that, in January, I'm starting for, this will be the 6th one. I run a group program for women. Sorry, guys, it's just for women, called Frustration to Freedom. And it's where we take a deep dive. We look at all of the systems for your business. We look at what's going on in your home, but we also spend half of our time developing that internal clutter toolkit. So I teach, or I bring in guests to teach everything from, we do a lot on the thoughts, like we talked about, but we teach everything from journaling, meditation. We look at art as stress relief. We look at just so many fun things to build up and bolster that internal clutter toolkit. So that's my absolute favorite thing to do. And that starts in January. So if you follow me on any of the places, you'll see that coming up.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to have to hop on over there and take your quiz and join your group. That sounds awesome. Yeah, and one of my favorite things of why I wanted to start getting more guests on here is because I'm a firm believer in the win-win, and we all have something different to offer. And so we may share, I focus on working with women too, business owners, faith-centered, but we all have kind of different areas of expertise. And I just love what you've shared with us today. It has been super insightful for me, and I know it will be for everyone else too. So thank you so much for joining us today, for your time and your insight and everything. I really appreciate it. I invite everyone to make sure you take these tips and bring them into the new year, okay? Take some notes down and look at them again so you don't just listen in one ear and out the other. And make sure you also register and join us for the 5-day goal setting workshop that is going to be starting December 27th. So we're just under 2 weeks away for that, where we're going to be reflecting, resetting, and rewriting our story for 2024. And that's all happening inside my Facebook group, Small Business Women Fueled by Faith. So make sure you see the links at the bottom of the podcast to get on over there where the workshop's going to be hosted. And make sure you jump into Kerry's group too. It's going to be awesome over there. I'm excited to join. Less Clutter, More Peace. You can find her links at the bottom of the podcast too. Check out her website again. That's cluttertoclaritysteps.com. And she's on Instagram, Conquer the Chaos. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, Kerry. And thank you to the listeners. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.